Hi, and welcome to this edition of Office Hours with the Practical Prof and Friends. I'm your host, Dr. Santo D. Marabella, and as you know, we do podcasts and we do some video interviews, and obviously this is a video interview. And I'm really happy to have you here today. It's a bit of a different interview. We're talking about music. We have an artist with us who's a friend of mine, and I'm really happy to share his music. Might be a little provocative in some ways, which is fine, right? Ask you to keep an open mind. He has a really interesting perspective and interesting way of kind of presenting his art. So let me introduce to you Justin Bortz, who is involved with this and creating this album, which is called Rage Against Religious Mediocrity. And he has kind of coined this genre, or at least is certainly highlighting this genre, called transcendental punk. So, Justin, welcome to the show, and we're really happy to have you here today.
Thanks, Santo.
So, Justin, I certainly know about your background. We've been friends for a long time, but I'd love for you to share with our audience a little bit of your background, because it's very eclectic, very exciting, got a lot of different talents, and why don't you tell us about those?
I know exactly what to say. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so right here on my arm is a tattoo of my logo.
Okay.
It's my designer logo.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is, it's a black swan, okay? And it really tells the story of everything I do as a designer, whether it's jewelry or music or anything. Because in Native American spiritual teaching, the black swan is grounded on the earth with his body. He stretches his head up into the heavens, and he builds a bridge between heaven and earth. Okay, so if you know me, and you do, and people that do know me, they know that I'm a down-to-earth person, but I'm also a spiritually minded person.
Absolutely.
And philosophically attuned person. More than spiritual, philosophically attuned.
Awake.
At least mind-wise,
Yes,
to a degree. After a lot of work. So, with the music, as with the jewelry designs, but the music is, I feel, a lot more effective aesthetically because it's music. It's building kinds of bridges that I don't think have been attempted to be built, thus far in music. I came up with the idea. I've been singing in bands for 10 years now, and I came up with the idea as I was kind of closing the doors on my jewelry store and really putting down all the energy I had put into that jewelry store for 31 years and just kind of letting it down, all right? So 2 or 3 days later, ding, a light went off in my head that had this idea of a new kind of musical approach, and it was transcendental punk. And as soon as I had this idea of transcendental punk, it was like I was plugged in. Because that night I was up till 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning writing the beginnings of 9 songs, and ultimately coming up with the name of the band, which is Radical Deployment of Honesty, or RDH.
That's really interesting, and I like this connection between this heaven and earth connection. You're planted firmly here, but especially in today, we need that kind of hopefulness that there's something bigger. There's something like is that been helpful for you in terms of like how you live your life?
Well, absolutely. I think if somebody wants to digest something that's instantly going to give them hope in this world we live in, day and age, watch interviews of people that have died for 20 minutes or an hour or whatever, and then come back, because they died. They came into a different dimension, and then they came back in this dimension, and they have a story to tell, and that is the most encouraging thing.
That's really interesting, and I'm sure that it has some connection to your creative expression with your music. So tell us, how does that impact it?
My music is more about busting through a dam that exists.
Okay.
And it exists that stymies people's spirits and stymies their potential heart awakening to any greater spiritual, realization. And it really exists like between childhood and adolescence. Okay? It's kind of, that's why it's punk rock. Because what does punk rock serve? Punk rock serves an adolescent who's suddenly seeing the holes in things, like, their parents, like suddenly their parents aren't, they're seeing them for human beings of who they are.
Right.
And they're seeing the world for as effed up as it is, they're starting to, and they're pissed off. And it's real outrage.
Sure.
And it's outrageous things, and they feel the rage and the outrage.
Yeah, let's talk about the album. As I listened to it and really enjoyed it, would you classify it as a concept album? It seems like that to me.
You would know better than me, being the theater and the genius that you are. If you could call it a concept album,
make sure that check gets out there now. No, well, yeah, I do, because it tells a story, and most songs tell stories, but this album tells a story.
The name of the album, or the EP, it's 7 songs, it's 18 minutes long, is Rage Against the Religious Mediocrity.
Okay, so let's talk about this notion of religious mediocrity. Is it an indictment against, all religions? Or I don't hear that. I don't know. Or is it against one religion? How do you describe it?
I was raised, I was always very religious. My mom was a truly religious person, a true devotee of Jesus of Nazareth. Her eyes were always moist with tears or ready to laugh. No judgment in her heart for anyone whatsoever. So she was a great person. And I used to tag along with her. I was their 10th child, the baby of the family. So I tagged along with her to the masses and the prayer meetings and the healing services. And then when I got to junior high in 9th grade, they asked, what do you want to do with your life? And at that particular moment, I said, become a priest. I don't know how long that lasted, but for that moment, I thought I was going to maybe be a priest. There was a lot of moments that were kind of key. One of them was when I was in a room full of other young life leaders and young life leader aspirants like myself, and it was me arguing with the whole room on this idea that if you weren't a Christian, you weren't going to heaven.
Okay, and that's a really probably challenging, difficult place to be. So how did you respond to that? What did you do?
When I hit about 20, 21 years old, I started seeing real massive discrepancies in integrity in what had become Christianity. So what happened for me was I started looking to the East, basically. Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism. I started reading those books. And backing up a little bit, it's important to make this special note that when I was in junior high, I was a devotee of the show Kung Fu with David Carradine. I freaking loved Kwai Chang Caine, Grasshopper, and the beautiful sage that he was in that show. Okay. So kind, so sweet, so forgiving, yet he could kick ass too, which is super cool.
Right.
But nevertheless, Buddhism rang a real clear bell for me. So I think it's important to go that distance, and then go the distance of understanding that my heart was always in music.
That's a really great setup. It really helps our audience kind of understand where you're coming from. So let's talk about the music, and specifically let's listen to some music. Which one should we start with?
I was thinking that Don't Ram That Dogma Shit might be a good one.
Okay, let's look at.
Lay that shit on me.
as I listen to it, kind of reminiscent of this, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Is that kind of the message here?
It gets right to this point that beliefs, like what you believe, like do you believe in God? Even Pope Francis said it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. It's not about believing, it's about an experience. It's about a relationship with the divine or God or whatever you call it.
Great, we're going to listen to another song, but let me just remind folks, you're listening to Office Hours and watching Office Hours with a Practical Prof and Friends with my friend Justin Bortz, and we're talking about his concept album, Rage Against Religious Mediocrity. All right, so Justin, what's the next song you have for us?
Play The Circus of Subhuman Conscious Decline.
It's a 2,000K Christian race at a holy war pace. Paul of Tarsus has overtaken Christ, and his message of heavenly enlightenment has been sliced and diced. Are you shocked by what you see? I feed your cravings if you please. More and more and more extreme. It's a circus of subhuman conscious decline. Sell your soul for cotton candy. Devilish treats that feed your illness. Entrench your heart in icy stillness. It's a circus of subhuman conscious decline. It's a circus, illusions by the score, as we sell you more and more and more. Your lovelessness to tour the gore. It's the greatest show on earth and more. Hollywood's pimping dark matter. The Western world keeps getting fatter. The bearded lady and the ladder. It's a circus of subhuman conscious decline. Are you shocked by what you see? I feed your cravings if you please. More and more and more extreme. It's a circus of subhuman conscious decline. It's a circus, illusions by the score, as we sell you more and more and more. Your lovelessness to tour the gore. It's the greatest show on earth and more. Don't throw your pearls to swine. Don't drink the poison of wine. It's a dark contract, a vice-ridden bind. And it's a circus of subhuman conscious decline. More and more and more and more and more and more. The greatest show on earth. Devilish chariots to shock your illness. Take a tour of the gore. Take a tour of the gore.
Wow, really profound song. Lyrics are amazing. I wish we had more time, but we don't. So, what would you like the message to be when people listen to this? What do you really want them to get from this album?
I would like them to exercise their doubts that they may already have, that I'm bringing to a highlight. You know, maybe everyone around them in their environment is saying the opposite of what they're intuitively coming to feel or consider in their own mind and heart. And maybe they'll hear some of these words and some of these lyrics that I'm confident enough to put out there and say, and think, oh, okay, I'm not alone. You know, I'm not the only one that thinks this or thinks that. And maybe, you know, frees their chains, you know, helps bust through the chains. And I think the live performance, once my band is performing, I think that's going to have a really cool effect. I think it could be like a really cool kind of experience that can happen at a Radical Deployment of Honesty concert.
So you're really challenging us, Justin. This is it's very thought-provoking. It's very creative. I think it's really important that we have an open mind about this, because in some, you know, for some of us, this is very confronting, very provoking. But that's okay, because it really leads us to more understanding, more awareness. Who else would you like to? I know you wrote and sing, but who else would you like to acknowledge as far as your team here, the creatives?
Keith Smoker, my very good friend. He's locally famous with John Flywheel and the Zoo Boys.
Okay.
And also Cloud Party. He played bass for them. But he's been with a number of bands that I've been with. Keith plays the bass and the guitar, and he wrote all the music to the Vanity Social Ego Parade.
Cool.
Okay. Now, all of this recording took place at Marty Mellinger's studio, Cross Keys Recording Studio.
Yeah.
And Marty and I worked together to really bring these songs to life.
Yeah.
It's like he couldn't have done it without me. I couldn't have done it without him. We really worked as a team, and worked really well as a team
He's
to
a
make
great
these
collaborator.
songs. He's great.
He's
He's
really great.
he's so like seasoned and so professional. He just
Absolutely.
knows so much. It's just like right there for him.
Absolutely. So how can people
Oh,
get this?
and the drummer, Matt Liptak.
Okay.
A new friend, fantastic drummer, like one of the best I've ever heard. He's a trained musician from Westchester, and he just showed up at the studio at the right time, at the right place,
Nice.
and he did all the drums. So the fantastic drumming you hear is Matt Liptak.
Can't forget the drummer. You're right. So how can people access this or get the album?
It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. I've seen on the platform called CD Baby, and I have
Yep.
a band. They can go to Bandcamp
Good.
and listen to all the songs where I have a page on Bandcamp. So whatever's easier for them.
That's great. Lots of outlets to share your music and hear it. That's awesome. Thank you, Justin, for being with us on the show today. It was really great to have you. Good. Best of luck with the album. What's next?
I'm going to continue writing, form the band, start playing out. You know, I really have high
Bring this to
hopes.
life?
Bring this to life.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All the best to you.
Thank you.
This has been Office Hours with the Practical Prof and Friends, and today we were talking with Justin Bortz around his new album, Rage Against Religious Mediocrity, in the genre of transcendental punk. Check it out. Thanks for being with us.